All right. I'm here with Mr. Josh Ormonde. Did I say it right?
Yep, you got it, man.
Awesome. We're
Yeah, thanks.
another great episode of Real Estate versus Technology. Norman is sitting in Hawaii this week, so I am
Poor guy.
yeah, I'm taking the lead on a few of these podcasts, but yeah, great to have you on. So let's dig into it.
Yep.
How did you get into this business, and what are you doing being a real estate agent?
Yeah. Man, how I got into it, it's a fun story, actually. So, I mean, I'll keep it short, but so back in 2018, actually, I was in a situation where I had owned my first home, and I came to the decision that I was going to sell this house. But like most, people out there that, think that they know everything, I thought, I don't need a real estate agent. I don't need a real estate agent to do this. Like, it can't be that hard, right? I'm going to take some really cool pictures of this house with my phone, and I'm going to put them on Zillow, and there's going to be tons of people that are going to be lining up, and they're going to buy this house, right? I even held an open house on like the first weekend afterwards that I listed or whatever, and I stood there for 4 hours. Not one person came in. Not one person until the last 20 minutes of that open house, and this nice couple came in, and they turned out to be investors that were moving into the area. And so they came in, they gave me my only offer on the house, all cash, ready to go. And I was like, absolutely, let's do it. And so I jumped onto that all day long. Obviously thinking, man, this really wasn't that bad. That was a whole like 2-week process at that point in time. What I found out though is it's all the things that happen after that you need to know about. It's not just listing the house and getting an offer on the house. It's everything that happens after that point to get you to the finish line. And those are all the things that I didn't know. And at that point in time, I was so eager to make sure that the deal got done, no matter what, that I said yes to anything that they wanted. It was like no negotiations whatsoever, which, I mean, sounds like a terrible idea.
No.
Yeah, right. I would tell myself, that was probably the wrong decision to make, but it was what it was. And so I went through that whole process. I lost some money in the process. But what I did learn after we eventually closed on the house is that I really, really enjoyed that process. And I'm the type of person that if I don't know how to do something and I don't know how to do it really, really well, then I'm going to go out and I'm going to, I kind of deep dive into it and I start trying to figure it out. And that's what I did. And suddenly I ended up with my real estate license and going into our 4th year.
Makes sense, man. That's awesome.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's totally, I mean, you hear so many of these stories of how people get started, and I think it's what you don't know, right? That shocks you into realizing that it's about that whole process. Those little nuances of the deal is what most people think they know. And I wanted to kind of like interject here because I was just talking to a customer and they were like, hey, we're thinking about possibly for sale by owning it. It was one of my employees. It was one of my employees' dads, right? And I said, I avoid for sale by owners when I have buyers because I end up having to do all the paperwork for them.
Yep.
And it's like doing a dual transaction, but only getting paid for half the side. And then I got to school you and inform you about what we're going to do. And there's appraisals and inspections, and I need this advisory. And so I said, I avoid him like the plague. And he's like, all right, let's sign the listing.
Yeah. I've had, I've had, closer friends, family members, people that have asked me that same question, if they could save money doing it that way. And I tell them the same answer all the time. I tell them, absolutely, you can save money by going that way. You're going to save money on, commissions. You're not going to have to pay your real estate agent. You can save money on the listing process because maybe, you're going to take pictures with your iPhone and you're going to upload them yourself. You're going to kind of save money on that process. But you also have to understand that you might be sacrificing something in the long run if you run into that situation like I did, where I didn't know. I got a laundry list of requests for repairs after they did their home inspection. I did not know that you didn't have to do all those. Yeah. And so I said yes to all of them. And then because I said yes to all of them, I went out and I started doing them all myself. And oh yeah, I mean,
the time
I ended up with a broken pipe in the shower because I'm not a plumber. and I didn't know what I was doing, right? And so I ended up in all these things. And overall, at the end of the day, I can look back on it now and say I probably would have made more money had I used somebody that knew what they were doing.
Yeah. And I think it's what you don't know that hurts you and that process. So
yeah.
Pivoting this conversation, now that you have the business up and running and things are going good, like what are you leaning into to get business both in lead generation and technology?
Yeah, I mean, I think probably same thing like you guys are doing. I think that social awareness and that social reach is becoming so much more important than it ever has been. I think the last 2 years have showed us that, with people locked in their houses, probably more glued to their phones than they need to be. But you know, if you can, I'm leaning into that side of things and saying if I can make myself, top of feed, then I can be top of mind.
Mm.
And that's kind of the way that I look at it. You know, the people that you look to the most and people that I look to the most on our social networks are the people that are constantly up there gaining our trust through what they're talking about. And so I think that personal brand and that view of yourself is going to become so much more important moving forward.
100%. I think that's, I was telling somebody yesterday, because I have both billboards, real billboards, and then I have digital billboards. And I say, you know, the only difference is that I'm hitting them from two angles. It's like getting a right and a left hook. And I said, the billboard that I paid exuberant amount of money for on a very busy highway would not be half as effective if they didn't open their phone and also see my face and my brand.
Right.
It's that omnipresence that you're talking about that's so important.
Yeah.
And in your market, like what seems to be the biggest lead generation? Is it Zillow? Is it Instagram? Like what does your market do? Because every market's different on where you get buyers.
Yeah, and it's hard to say because I think that different things work for different people. And obviously where you put your money and where you put your time into is where you're going to get results at. And you have to stick with that. And you have to stay really engaged in that. So if you're doing billboards or you're doing postcards or you're knocking on doors, you're kind of going with those, what I kind of refer to as the old school way of doing things. You've got to really drive that. And will you get results? Absolutely. You do it long enough, you do it hard enough, you're going to get results. I think for a lot of agents coming in right now, especially, pushing on that younger population, cell phone. This is your lead gen right here. Things like, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, YouTube, all of those outlets, they're all going to become outlets where that's where people are going for their information. When I go to find, a business in a town I haven't been to, I'm going to go find, a brewery or a restaurant or something like that. I don't Google it. I don't Google it. I go to Instagram and I say, okay, cool. I know the name, or maybe I'll Google it and I'll say, okay, well, there's 100 restaurants. Where am I going to go? Right. I'm going to go to Instagram and I'm going to go look at what they're doing, what they're putting out. And I'm going to say, hey, that looks awesome. That's where I'm going. I automatically trust that person to give them my business because of the presence that they've created and the access that I have to it.
Yeah, I think it's two concepts here that I kind of touch base on is that like you have these restaurants and businesses that they do good work, they do great work, right? They have happy customers, but they don't illuminate those brand ambassadors. They don't show what they're doing every day. So like your connection on the internet or in your phone is not as personalized as you would like if a plumber has an Instagram feed and you're like watching his stories about him doing something that like is pretty interesting, you're probably going to hire him because you're like, wow, like I'm seeing him active every day. Like he's doing work, like he's got customers. That social credibility is huge. And I think so many real estate agents just like, it's a facade that they don't enter into.
Yeah. Well, I think it's a lot of fear too. I think for a lot of people, the idea of putting themselves out there in that regard is very scary because you're afraid of what's people are going to say about you, what they're going to think about you. Is my hair right? Is my outfit right? You start running through all of these things that at the end of the day, you never actually get anything done. because you're so afraid of what might happen that you don't do anything. And so I'm somebody that has struggled with that 100%. You know, we do a lot of reels now. You know, we've really tried to put an emphasis on getting our faces on cameras more, at least in my office with my business, you know, that kind of thing. And I think that you just have to let it go. You just have to post it and then walk away.
Yeah. No, it's I've created a I mean, this podcast is not about me, but I created a pretty substantial following on YouTube. I got like almost 3,000 subs, and
nice.
my videos on the first like 45 videos are absolute shit. Like it's like me driving, and I just did one yesterday. Like, you know, I'm trying to maximize my time, but when an idea or a piece of content comes to mind, I'm like, all right, so I could do this professionally and have it edited and then go back and forth, or I can put the content out there. And so I was driving, I was just like, all right, I'm going to talk about everything that you have to do about buying new construction in Oregon, because I get the call like literally once a week from somebody. It's like, hey, I want to buy land and I'm going to build a house. And I'm like, cool, you have 2 years. And there's all these questions, right, that come up: zoning, utilities, feasibility, all of this stuff. So I think it's the just do it attitude that you're referring to, which is you got to just do it. And then look for better refinement of that process and that cadence as you get more successful with being comfortable. That's it.
Yeah. No, I agree 100%. I have the same thing too. Like I have gone back like through my Instagram, and you can do it on even people's personal Instagrams. You start scrolling all the way back till you get to like 2014. You remember like the just super grainy filters everybody threw on the pictures, and they're just terrible, right? And but when I look back at that kind of transition over the couple of years, what you see is growth. You see that like, hey, this post became this post, that became this video. And then, you know, how you did on this video, you suddenly got better and better and better. And so if you can see that progress, then it's actually kind of fun to go back and look at some of the, you know, the whatever, you know, kind of videos that you didn't like about yourself.
Yeah, no, I was doing it was like an exercise the other day with a couple of my agents that I'm training. And I said, you know, whatever your lead generation preference, whether it's cold calling, video, social media, it needs to match your personality. And then you need to go all in with it. And I don't care what you do, but relationship building, creating opportunity in real estate is all about people knowing who you are. And I think in your market specifically, you know, where were the hard points of learning that process? Like, did you start out as like cold calling people, like SOI, obviously not past clients, but you get where I'm going with this. Like, where were those struggles where you were like, I need to pivot?
I think that happened kind of early on. I actually started with one brokerage before I moved to the Anderson Real Estate Group, which is where I'm at right now and where I had been for the last 3 years. But I was at a different brokerage. There was, you know, great people there, wonderful environment. But I felt very quickly that I wasn't in the place where I wanted to attach my brand to, where I wanted to say, this is, you know, I feel like whenever, especially in real estate, whenever you jump onto a team or a brokerage, wherever you're at, I feel like, especially now, it should really reflect the kind of brand that you want to have for yourself. Okay. They have to kind of align to some extent. They don't have to be identical, but they got to align. You know, I was telling somebody the other day, I'm like, there's a reason why you don't see Louis Vuitton being sold at Walmart, right? Because they're two different brands. They're two different brands. They're two different, just populations of people that are going to go in there and buy them. There's two different clientele. You know, they're two very separate things. And so if you're sitting here trying to be a luxury real estate agent, but you're at a brokerage that doesn't have a great name for doing luxury deals or any deals, well, then it's going to be really hard for people to look at you and take you seriously for what you're doing. And so I think that you just have to make sure that that personal brand is aligning, or at least the people that you were surrounding yourself with, the people that you're attaching yourself to, has to align with what you want your personal brand to be.
Yeah, no, it's me from experience. When, you know, originally was a commercial agent, and then when I transferred into residential, was with the EXP. Nothing bad to say. Like I loved it. But me being like tech forward, very innovative, like Real Broker, when Real Broker came out and we were going through this whole transition, I said, guys, it's regardless of what brokerage we're at. Our brand is the most important aspect in how people perceive us, how we communicate with other agents. I was like, it's not about the brokerage. The brokerage is important, right? And has to align, like you're saying, but your brand presence needs to stand above all of that.
Right, right.
And the younger agents were like, I didn't even think about that. And I was like, yeah, because every time you do a deal or every time your paperwork is all messed up and they're correcting your problems, like it's a direct reflection on leadership, also the brand. And I think moving that brand and evolving and growing that brand, a lot of agents don't understand that until it's too late.
Yeah. I think it's hard. I tell people all the time, like, regardless of if you want to be on social media or not, or whatever it is, there's obviously a lot of different perspectives of how people see social media and if it's, beneficial or not. I think that it's a tool if you use it right. And I think that it's a tool that can really expose the kind of brand that you want to have. And so if you're not utilizing that tool, then you're leaving money on the table. You know what I mean? You're leaving clientele out there that you could be getting. And if you're not willing to adapt and change with it, then you're going to get left behind. That's just the reality of it. And especially in this business being, it's a volatile, cutthroat business at times. And obviously there's a lot of people that can get into this business, but not a lot of them continue to stay in it. Yeah. And if you want to continue to stay in it for the long haul, then you have to see where these trends are coming and you have to be willing to kind of dive into them.
No, it's always that first deal. I say, like, you're going to try something new. It's Instagram, right? And then you start doing it for a few months, nothing happens, right? You start doing it for another couple months, nothing happens. And it's that first deal when somebody said, like, where did you find me? Or how'd you hear about me? And they're like, Instagram. And then it's like that aha moment where you're like, return on investment. Okay, now I'm going to take this serious. And I think not all types of marketing have that return on investment or trackability, right? People know your name, they see your signs, but your signs are from a listing, right? There's all these alternative ways that people are going to find you. But the number one thing I want to say about real estate versus technology is that without technology and spreading your brand and awareness around as far as possible and in the deepest sectors of everything, it's very hard to see the evolution of some of the more seasoned agents that didn't adapt. And like, people know their brand, but I'll do a deal with them and then I'm like, click on their email signature and it goes to a website that's broken link, right?
Yeah. I know. I think it's just that mentality shift. It's the mentality shift. And unfortunately, like, it happens, the more that you become ingrained in what's worked for so long, right? Like, you don't want to jump on Instagram because, you've been on Facebook for so long, Instagram's done because all you do is post pictures, right? But until you get that first deal that comes through, and then you go, okay, there actually is some relevance to this, right? And that happened to me at the back half of 2021. I got a random phone call. I'm driving one day and my phone starts ringing and it's some random area code I've never heard of. So initially, first thing I'm going is like, spam. And I'm terrible because I hate answering those phone calls because I'm like, one, it's probably spam, 90% chance it's spam. Two, like, what if it is a client and I miss it now, right? So like, then I've got that thought in the back of my head and I'm fighting with that thing. And so my wife told me one day, we were driving and she's like, if it looks legit to some extent, I don't know how her phone number looks legit, but she's like, if it looks legit, you need to answer it. Cause like, what if it is a client? I'm like, okay. So this number calls and for some reason I'm like, you know what? I'm going to answer it. And it's this guy, he's calling me from Indiana. Okay. And super nice guy. And he says, hey, I just saw this property come up for sale in your area. I'm going to be moving to that area for work here soon. I'm wondering if you can help me out with finding, checking out this property. And if it's not, right, then we'll find some other ones. So all of a sudden I've got this phone call from this guy that's moving here and he wants to buy a house. And I'm like, okay, this is awesome. But I asked him, I said, how'd you find me? You know what I mean? Like, you're from Indiana, I'm from Visalia, California. Where'd you find me at? And he goes, found you on Instagram. We started looking for people and my wife came across your Instagram. And she was really happy to want to work with me because my Instagram looked good. The properties that I was selling looked good. The listing presentations on those properties, what I was posting on Instagram, Facebook, all these things, they look good and it looked professional. So then that took them to my website. My website looks professional and it looks, everything's taken care of. It's done really, really nicely. They said, this is, whenever we started looking at other people that maybe had, 20, 30 more reviews on Zillow, we'd go and we'd look at their, the kind of their proof of production, their Instagram, their websites, and they're like, there's nothing there.
That I'm so glad you brought this up. I got a random call yesterday from an agent at Keller Williams up in Seattle. He was like, hey, I got a client to refer you, blah, blah, blah. But also he was asking some marketing questions. He had no clue I was tied to a marketing company or anything. So I answered like everything he had to say. And I said, well, the importance of a website is that it's the business that you don't do, that you don't know that you lost, because your credibility online is based upon the discovery process and the due diligence that prospective clients are doing. And you're nailing it on the head, because they're going to find you on Instagram. They're going to go to your link tree. They're going to find you on the internet. And if your website sucks, your other supporting marketing does not have brand identity or synergy across all these different platforms. You said it. There's people with 80 more reviews, but they're missing the components of credibility. Yeah. Because that's not all that's important. It's the website, it's the Instagram, it's the full picture.
It is. Yeah. I think that as real estate continues to progress, just like any business, people are going to look for information in the places that they, like that whole saying, like, know, and trust you, right? They want to work with you if they like, know, and trust you. That liking, knowing, and trusting is starting on your phone. Okay. It's starting on what they can see, what they can hear you do, what they hear, they're going to support, like, know, and trust you because of the reoccurring content that they're getting. And then once they kind of get that basis, then they start branching out. They're looking for you in other areas too. Is he on YouTube? Does he have a website? Is he on all these other branches? And that just continues to build that kind of, in a way, it's that relationship with them already before you even met them. So then by the time that I come and I meet you, I already know who you are, right? I know who you are. I know what kind of work you do. I trust you already. I'm much more likely to give my business to you because I've already introduced you to myself through this.
It's the connections of technology, man, that like, this is one of the best times to be in real estate, regardless of what people are saying about interest rates. And because we have the amazing capability to pick up this phone and reach thousands of people, where 30, 40 years ago, you would have to sit on your phone for 3 weeks.
Yeah. I mean, the availability of information, and I think too, and that's what got me back then too. Back in 2018, whenever I sold my first house, availability of information. It's right here in my hand. I can Google how to sell my house, right? And it's going to bring me up 10, pages that are going to tell me how to do it. And it's not always perfect, but it was a starting point. And I think that the availability of information for people to come in and kind of meet you in this way before they actually call you, it's going to change the game. And the people that can adapt with that and move forward and embrace it, they're going to be the ones that are really going to win.
Yeah. That's one of the aha moments of this whole episode is you nailed it on the head, man. Like I try to tell people time and time again, like this is the most amazing time to be able to get as much of your voice out. So, as we wrap this up, what's the one thing you can leave for all of our real estate agents, listeners, viewers, people who may potentially want to get into real estate that, you've learned throughout this process of being a seasoned agent and have them apply it?
Yeah, I mean, I think if I was telling anybody that's trying to get into the business, I would tell them that the opportunity is still out there. It's always going to be out there. You just have to be willing to go out and change your mentality and adapt to whatever the market is telling you, and find that opportunity and take advantage of it when you can, and just don't stop. It's easy to get discouraged, especially in this business, because there's a lot of comparison that goes on in this business. And if you're constantly sitting there looking at what somebody else is doing, again, you got to go out and do it. You just got to go put your foot forward, just jump in and do it and stay with it as long as you can. And then eventually you'll find that opportunity and it'll take off for you.
Yeah, man. Well, great to meet you, Josh. This has been
Yeah.
a great, you got me pumped because I've been really focused on, connecting some of these dots of, brand awareness and being able to just utilize social media to be so much more effective. And so there's a lot of good information in this episode I think people are going to be able to run with. So thanks for being on.
Yeah. No, I appreciate it. Thank you. You guys are killing it on all of your channels and everything. So I definitely appreciate you having me on and talking more about it.
Yeah. Thank you, Josh. And as we wrap this up, it is our intention for you to take something from this episode and and implement it in your business to have massive success. So we'll see you on the next one.
Sounds good, man. Thanks.
Thanks.